in a line and plucked one out, those like every single one with 6 or 7 lands would be exterminated, and I think all of, like a significant number of the ones with 0 lands are also exterminated.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
Which
I just started the stream, so I think people are going to join us without any sort of introduction. So
oh, okay.
we're good to go here. We're just this going to be a quick. I think our conversation is nifty enough to merit getting some participation.
Do you have
Otherwise, I
it?
think we'll just keep rambling forever.
Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
we should be
I will
live now,
let
and
me mute. Yeah. Okay. Now I
hopefully
can
it sounds okay too. I was while you're talking, I was trying to balance the um on my sound with your sound. I might be a little bit low actually. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, for all the people that will be joining, it takes a while, a couple of minutes usually before people start hopping on. I am here with Kyle, who is another writer at Quiet Speculation. We are going to do our best to dissect the Pauper format with the announcement from ChannelFireball that Pauper is now going to be at least a side event, and possibly even bigger Grand Prix draw for their side event type thing, and has now also been really kind of signal boost, I guess is the right thing, by Tulare Community College. So the rule of thumb is whenever Tulare Community College does anything, it's going to get a lot of eyes, and especially in ChannelFireball, that's a pretty good partnership for a format that has a lot of potential for spikes that we haven't seen happen before. It already has a pretty robust following on MTGO. In fact, we were discussing earlier that the MTGO leagues are extremely healthy with 775 participants, which is, I think that's, what is it now, 1,100 for friendly and 900 for competitive, and even in standard. So that's pretty significant to be in about a third of what standard is. And I didn't check the modern numbers, but I think there's a lot of potential. Both, I mean, they both feed off each other. So full disclosure, full transparency, Kyle's a little more bullish. I'm definitely bearish for sure. I don't know if I'd call you bullish right now in the MTGO market or the paper market, but I am trying my best to stay away from any sort of investment in either of the platforms, either in cardboard or in digital on MTGO, just with the amount of ambiguity around Arena, and also just the oversaturation in the cardboard or the paper market. So anyway, Kyle, you've introduced yourself. Just a quick overview of who you are, why you're important.
Oh, well, I don't know if I'm important, but I started writing for Quiet Speculation about 6 months ago. Well, I guess it's longer than that now. I guess it's like, 6 to 8 months ago. Focusing on Magic Online finance. So Pauper's definitely been a lot bigger on Magic Online than it has in paper, but that might be, I don't know if that'll change, relatively speaking, but it is nice to see that ChannelFireball is going to do something with Pauper. There was talk about an actual Pauper GP, but that's not what's occurring. I think it's more that Pauper's being given sort of pride of place at side events at the GP. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Kevin?
yep. So it's gonna be side events. I think they're testing a lot of people want to see it as I don't know if a full Grand Prix will ever be. I think that comes from Wizards. I don't think that even though ChannelFire runs them, I don't think they get to schedule them. I'm not
Yeah.
quite certain on that. But if I think they're testing the waters to see if this is a format that is going to have enough potential. I think the Frontier usually ends up at least a couple events firing. I would assume that Pauper would have a much better reception than Frontier does, because there seems to be a lot of diehards in the format. And I've just been looking over the kind of stats on. I'm surprised to see that a bunch of these cards have already spiked since the beginning of last year. And again, this has just gone under the radar for me because I am not a Pauper player. I've dabbled in it from time to time, but we were discussing earlier how Pauper is way more of I guess you compared it to StarCraft versus Commander. That Pauper, everyone knows the tools. It has a lot less diversity than the uh, the. Hope everyone's ears didn't get blasted there. I gotta figure out how to turn that off. That's like a sub thing.
Thanks for doing what you do, my dude.
Oh, appreciate
it's just more of a form. You were cutting out, Kevin, so I actually didn't catch most of what you just said.
I had some sort of I think I had a donation on Streamlabs, and I've got it. It just blasted my ears, so I need to figure out where that's coming from.
People seem to call Pauper like more akin to Legacy than anything else, and maybe that's right, at least in terms of deck diversity. It's much more diverse than Standard, and significantly less diverse than Modern, in terms of like the number of viable decks that have a name. I actually think that Pauper, like there's more room for like pure control decks than in Modern, but you have your very, very linear, straightforward aggro decks that are very strong in Pauper, and then you have a few mid-range decks that are very powerful, and a few late-game decks that are very powerful, and you have a few combo decks that are good, but I don't know if they're tier 1. And is it Blitz and Inside Out combo? I see Inside Out combo has fallen off. It was like the top. It was in the top 3 decks.
It just won the big event though. So
it just won the big event.
Yeah.
I've begun dabbling in Pauper a bit more of late, and it's a very powerful deck. So anyway, yeah, so Pauper, I mean, I don't know, it's hard for one person, me, to sort of judge the appeal, and then I would never want to base financial decisions upon like how I personally view how other people will like the format. I'd rather see a discernible level of interest amongst others, amongst the wide MTG player base of like a widespread groundswell of people who are wanting to try it out and are getting interested in it. And we'll see, I guess, with the ChannelFireball events, we'll see whether that's the case. I definitely think it's like, it's definitely a fun, I definitely think that it's a fun format that has, a lot of play to it, and it's skill intensive. It's not boring. It tends to be a little slower and grindier than I think what a lot of people want, but I think it's quite good, and there's definitely potential, as Kevin, I think part of the reason that Kevin is interested in it is for the for the potential of some cards to go up in value a lot, because Pauper isn't just drawing from cards that are standard legal and modern legal, but we're going all the way back to alpha. So cards like Holy Light and Gorilla Shaman.
I'll pull up some of those. So Holy Light's from the Dark, which does see play in some Pauper decks, and it's a 36-cent card. So this does see play in a white-blue. Okay, so white-blue Mulldrifter deck. Mulldrifter is a huge part of Pauper, by the way. This is a card too that I have on my list that could spike, because it hits that nice little point. What I'm looking for in cards are what I call the double dippers, the ones that have demand from 2 different formats. And so Mulldrifter is a card that's played quite a bit in Commander, and it's also played now quite a bit in Pauper. There's entire archetypes that are built around Mulldrifter. So I think Mulldrifter actually does tend to usually have a decent little price tag. So we have, looks like this Holy Day does see, or Holy Light does see play, mainly as a sideboard. Sideboard.
It's just a sideboard card.
Good versus goblins, good versus probably mono blue.
Exactly. Yeah. You'd bring it in against back when I played the card, I would bring it against Delver and some goblin variants. Because you can build a goblin deck to where all of your creatures have toughness 2 or greater, which makes the deck, which makes Holy Light bad. But other goblin decks have a lot of 1 toughness creatures, so then it's very, very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played a quite a bit of Pauper pre Aether Revolt, I guess. And when that Aether Revolt card came out, the one that just gave a creature -1/-1 when it came into play, that seems very interesting. Little addition to my little rogue tribal. So it's a format I'll keep about every year. I'll go back in and revisit it. But it's been a while since I played Pauper. But again, this is kind of a weird space for me because this is exactly, I would be so hyped for this if we didn't have all the issues going on right now in Magic, because this is exactly how I have my own little rags to riches story with MTG Finance. Most finance people are people that invest in expensive cards, wait till they get more expensive. So we're thinking like they invest in a $20 card, hoping it goes up to $60 and selling that. A lot of people, that's why they're in the reserve list at the moment, where I made my entire collection off kind of scraping the barrel off of the low end cards and being the only person that would bring them to my store and find people to actively trade with. So Pauper, this is just super exciting for any of you. Pro tip too, go and start to get a list together of these cards that do hold value. Go through your local game stores, their common bins, and you'd be surprised you can find like some Battle Screeches, for example. So anyway, there's my little interjection about that. But online though, I guess you're the online expert, and isn't this really the price that you like to get into cards though? A lot of times it's this low, pennies type cards.
I do tend to like a lot of the penny specs. Although most of my penny specs are in standard. Like I have a lot of Censors and Doomfalls and Chart of Courses and Field of Ruin, and now is one I'm picking up more. I made a lot of money on Aether Hub. I made $100 on Aether Hub last in January and February of this year. What else has been like a really good one for me? There was Blessed Alliance, but I didn't spec on that. Transgress the Mind was decent. So yeah, I mean, anyway, I don't want to get too off topic, but
yeah, well, I mean,
for Pauper, I still don't. I think you still have to judge it based upon, is the player base growing? And for Pauper, it does seem to be. Now there are 780 players in the league, and as you were saying, either right after you started recording us or not, it might have been a little before, but yeah, there are about a third of the number of people in the Pauper League as there are in both standard leagues, which is significant. It's like that's very significant. And yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see if the ChannelFireball announcement generates, whether it generates more interest in the Pauper format, and if we see the number of people in the league go to 800 and then maybe to 850, right? Like when you start, and I'm gonna start paying attention to these benchmarks now. If I see it go over 800, I'll be more interested in specking in some of these cards, and maybe even in playing the format again, actually. Because it is hard. I do personally think it is hard or you invest better when you actually play the format, because then you're better able to anticipate metagame shifts.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's much easier to invest in standard when you don't play standard. It's harder to invest in modern, legacy, Pauper when you don't play those formats. So
that's a
something
huge
I always
pro tip. Huge pro tip to everyone.
That's something I always recommend on or I tell people in my articles on For Quiet Speculation is you should definitely, like, if you're gonna, like, it's fine to trust a writer with their recommendations, if you're gonna go all in with that writer, but if you're gonna do it yourself, you really, really, really need to have a good knowledge and awareness of the format, which tends to mean that you actually play it.
Doesn't that make you surprised though that some of these bigger vendors like Card Kingdom, for example, or Star City Games haven't picked up more finance people to manage their inventory? That always surprises me that they get caught with these, caught with their pants down during price spikes. And a lot of the times for me, they're like the biggest duh. And like it's just baffles me why so much money is on the line. Why don't they actually hire, finance people to manage it? But I digress with that.
You wouldn't want that. No, I think I like them to just be, buying and selling purely upon like manifest market demand.
Yeah. Well, it's a very safe business model. Buy for
exactly.
Buy for 50%, sell for 100%. Yep.
Do I want my grocery store to to anticipate that that everyone's going to start wanting 2% milk instead of 1% milk? So
energy was the easiest thing in the entire world for me to predict. I got a lot of flack for a video that I made complaining about energy. Is pre-rotation. I think it was right with rotation. And I just kept saying, okay, well, after rotation occurs, it's just going to be energy. It's just going to be energy. And everyone looked at me like, I got all these people like, no, you're stupid. It's not that great of a deck. We'll wait and see, blah, blah, blah. I think it was when Regisar Alpha was spoiled. And I kept telling people, it's not going to compete with energy. It's not going to compete with, like, what is Dinosaurs going to do that energy can't do? And it's like, it's those type of price spikes, as you were saying, if you play the formats and you know exactly what cards are working and what cards are being held back, rotation wise. Of course, Pauper doesn't have a rotation, but it lets you get in on things before. I wish I would have bought more than 8 copies of Glint Sleeve Siphoner, for example, on MTGO, because that one spiked hard. But yeah, so it just baffles me though that they don't have more of these economists at their store that are like, hey, maybe we should hold off putting our entire stock of a certain card up. I anticipate this is probably going to be a pretty good card. So, but you're right, though. It probably might be more detrimental for their brand or their economy to be
well, it'd be detrimental for their brand for sure. But maybe they'd be able to make more money. I don't know. I just assume that's not their role, so they don't do it, and it's fine.
Oh, their role is to make money.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I suppose,
Yeah, but anyway, so I guess going back to our subject here, I'm just scrolling through a few things with possible. So here's a good example we're talking about on MTGO with like Tireless Tribe. Talk about your inside out combo. It looks like it's spiking right now. It had a 1-day gain from the low 40s up to, or high 30s up to a 45-cent margin. And less than a week ago, it was around the 30-cent, and even before that, it was down to 20 cents. That's a double up on MTGO. So, I mean, this is kind of what we're trying to look at the foils. Usually the foil market in paper precedes the regular market. It doesn't look like this is ever.
Well, nope, that's a good card. The Tireless Tracker is a good card to see what are the two different types of ways that cards go up on Magic Online. The former is a spike, and the latter shows a little more real demand, if you will.
So you're looking like the August 17 for Tireless Tribe had a spike and then went back down to normal. And this November,
like what happened in August, right, is that there was great interest because that's when the combo was found and it was like showing up, right? And so then what happens is that everyone tries to buy it, and so then the price goes up a lot, and then people look in their collections and they go, oh, now I can sell mine, right? And then they sell them, and then the price crashes, and then now you can kind of see, like, it's been going up slowly over, a month and a half.
That's a good sign. This is
that's a sign of real demand, of there being real demand, and that demand being met. But like there is definitely there's enough demand to where the card isn't just languishing in the bots. Like bots just don't have tons of this card to where they can still sell them for a penny or two.
Yeah, there's some if you're ever gonna get an MTGO in speculating MTGO, you definitely need to know the supply is very different with paper, and because some of these sets only existed for flashback drafts, they've never existed as full MTGO releases, and so the
Well, just look
supply on
at,
them are
I mean,
way low.
click on Stompy, and we can show them kind of what we were talking about earlier with, I mean, with regards to paper in particular.
Okay.
Because there's a few that like some people might go, oh, this is a good spec or this is a good spec, but some are a lot better than others, and there's a few good ways, I think, especially with Pauper, to tell which of these cards is just a more solid investment, I would say. And so I like Rancor, or if you click on the paper prices, right, some of these cards are just like bottom dwelling cards, that have been printed more recently or in master sets, things like Elephant Guide or
Burning Tree Emissary just got that massive
Burning Tree
reprint,
Emissary,
2 reprints
right?
in a row. Yep.
But then there are some that have a significant demand, like Rancor, that a lot of people might be interested in speccing. But the problem with Rancor is that Wizards loves to print it a lot, and they'll print it in dual decks, they'll print it in master sets, they'll print it in commander products.
It's been a core set.
And the easiest way for your listeners to go look is to just go to MTG Goldfish and look at the other printing section as you're showing them. And I mean, it just has a trillion printings, which means it'll continue to see, it'll continue to be reprinted. Whereas, as Kevin and I were discussing, if you look at Kyrian Ranger, it doesn't have all these printings. In fact, it's just a promo on Magic Online and Visions. We're talking ancient history, and you can then look at the card, and then if you read the card, you can see that it breaks all sorts of New World Order rules. It operates at instant speed, which commons don't often do. It interacts with a creature, right? So that's like seen as too complex. Anyway, this gets red flagged nowadays for multiple reasons, and so it will never ever see print as a common ever again.
It's got to go in a master set before they reprint it. It's going to be even hard for them to just chuck it in.
It won't even be common there. At minimum, it'd be uncommon or rare. This card could definitely be rare. It's extremely powerful and makes Stompy extremely good. So Kyrian Ranger to me would be a card that I would mull over investing in paper. Although like it being $2 already is kind of annoying, right? That's a little high, I would say. Although if Pauper becomes more popular in paper, you could easily see that go up to $5. I think. Yep. Because Stompy's the best deck in Pauper, and it's actually fairly interesting to play. It's not just like play a card and swing. It's not that easy. It's actually somewhat intricate, which is nice. So if any of y'all like aggro, yet you want something that's a little that doesn't quite live up to the stereotype of aggro being dumb, then mono green Stompy in Pauper's an interesting choice for you. But yeah, I mean, if Pauper becomes more popular in paper, I could easily see Kyrian Ranger become $5, $10, depending on the level.
The rarity's way low. If you compare it, I would say today's days mythics, definitely today's days rares are as common as a common out of Visions.
A Visions it'd be mythic now.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I don't
know. In a large
set,
it's probably a large set mythic.
Yeah, it's probably in between. Visions was a set that was during the time period where they printed sets. It wasn't alliances. I mean, it's alliances was one of those sets that was in between two overprinted sets, and there was actually a low print of alliances. Some of these older sets have a weird print quantities out there. So I think there's more Visions than like Urza's Saga, to be honest. It's weird because they kept printing. All the sets were supposed to be like semi-unlimited. They just kept printing and printing and printing for years. And Mirage and Visions kind of fall in that category. But yeah, the commons are still from that time period. This is an old card. I mean, what is it? It's approaching like 15, 20 years of how old the card is. So, yeah. So the thing I like about the Ranger too is it does see outside play beyond Pauper. There's a lot of elf tribal decks in Commander that will use it. And then speaking of like gems, talk about double dippers. Look at Nettle Sentinel. If Nettle Sentinel does not get a reprint soon, it is going. This card has nowhere to go but spike, because Modern is starting to see a lot more play with the Nettle Sentinel. I've actually seen Nettle Sentinel played in zoo decks before. I think it's quite weak in a zoo deck, but I've seen it played before. But the Legacy Elves in Modern decks, it is the powerhouse. It's the mana generator is the Nettle Sentinel. So in Pauper, I'm pretty sure it's the same way with Burst Lore Ranger. If you get 2 Nettle Sentinels, it creates the mana generation for. Does Pauper has an elves, right? Yeah.
It's fallen. I mean, I'm gonna let me look for it. Is it the blue-green deck?
Yeah, this UG deck. If you actually look at the latest, that 20. Yeah, this is actually way played. So is this one? Is Nettle Sentinel in double? It's in pop. So it's in Stompy and in.
Oh
elves.
yeah.
So it's double
it's
dipping. So it's Carrion Ranger then, huh?
Yep.
So they're double dipping in the. Yeah, this is a pretty potent card that I think is going to be positioned for a spike. One warning: Nettle Sentinel is probably. How likely is 25 going to have an elf theme to it, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I kind of I wish they'd just cancel Magic 25
Yeah, me too.
and do more and just like do a sort of next wave of unstable just to offer it, for drafting at that time. I think Wizards is definitely moving toward making paper Magic more like Magic Online, in that there's a normal release set, and then most of the way through you then insert something like new and interesting, like be it Conspiracy or Commander, and when they don't have access to like flashbacks as you do in Magic Online, then they're trying to come up with new ways to do it, and more master sets is the way that they've been doing it.
Well, they
late,
need to definitely lay off.
Unstable would be an interesting one to do, to do it in April. But yeah, I mean, anyway, ignoring what I want, which would be that, dropping Masters 25. I really don't know. I mean, Elves is a decent, it's a decent guess as to what might be Masters 25.
Dominaria is coming up too. That could have an elf.
Isn't
theme to it? It won't be in a standard set, but like a dual deck.
Isn't the theme of Masters 25 that there's like a few cards from every set in Magic's history that are in it?
It makes elves extremely easy to make a tribe. Same with goblins, same with merfolk, same with zombies. So
yeah, it makes me very afraid of my Voice of Resurgent spec, because what else from Dragon's Maze is there?
Yeah, they can't do voice again. They'd have to,
They did Resto again.
They can just do Master of Cruelties and call it good. That's what they'll do for it. But they just did a demon set, so I don't know. Yeah, good luck with Dragon's Maze. So
anyway, I mean, you might be right. Nettle Sentinel might be reprinted there.
Yeah, but I think it's safe at least for quite a while, and who knows exactly how much that would. Like, if this Pauper does take, like, this is, I'm telling everyone right now that if they're going to pull the trigger, they need to do it before Tolarian Community College releases the video, or right after it, because it's going to pop. There are a lot of interesting cards on here. Land Grant, that I think that one good way too of seeing the kind of the discrepancy between online and paper, because sometimes like Mercadian Masters can be very rare in both online and in paper. That was kind of a set that was when Magic was kind of on a downturn during Masks to begin with. It definitely wasn't during the huge growth of Magic in the early days, but Land Grant is 4 for $7 on online and 4 for $1.12. Wasn't this a card that was ran in Charbelcher at one point too? Did that deck just fall off the face of the earth? I don't keep up with Legacy. So.
No, it is. Yeah, no, it is. Like I played against someone in the Legacy League this week, and he had land grant in his Belcher deck. So
yeah, and I used it in a Cheerios deck when I used to play some Legacy. It was because I ran like 1 land or 2 lands or something, and then land grant was a way to, go get that land. So.
Well-Wisher could be interesting as well, as a spec. It's unlikely to be. I think it breaks.
Well, it gets printed a lot in Commander. So it just had the Commander Anthology reprint. Was the last one, and the Dual Deck Anthology reprint as well. However, this is another card that is a staple in every Commander tribal deck. So yeah, I'm with you. Like all of these, I don't see. This is a very safe place to put some equity in right now, at least trade equity if nothing else, because I don't see any of these going down. Like that's kind of where I'm looking at right now. With like full disclosure, I'm selling everything on MTGO, and we're also selling every card over $5 at our store. We're getting out of Magic right now in anticipation that there's a crash and we buy in 6 to 18 months. But how I'm saying we're getting out of is I'm actually putting the value in things I think will hold the best value and then spike up after we hopefully get a new wave of Magic players that come in. And these seem like very good cards if they're not going to get reprinted. Because the Well-Wisher, the Priest of Titania, both of those are very high demand cards in like their Commander formats. And that will just... I think that this will be the, like what I was saying earlier, what we want to call it, the straw that breaks the camel's back, or the critical mass where the demand hits the point where it goes from a card that is in stock at a lot of places to all of a sudden bought out and hard to find, and that just causes that massive spike. And I don't know, those are the type of cards I'm looking at. Not necessarily Pauper. I'm going to have the same strategy that I did with Frontier. I want to invest in cards that I think are really good in Frontier, but we're also staples in Modern, because then it's a win-win situation. I mean, or at least a no risk situation, because eventually Legacy and Commander are gonna continue the demand for a lot of these cards. But yeah, there's some good ones. So I have a list here of cards that I've composed here. I'll try to go through. One that looks very interesting for, I think this is a Stompy card. No, this is a what do they call this one? The Boggles card, I believe, is what this goes in. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does, right? Let's see what it goes in. Oh no, this goes... Yeah, I've seen this in Boggles before because it's a way to protect against the sacrifice effects, because it's another 2-for-1. Is Brindle Shoat, if that's how you say it. Shoat. The 1/1, when it dies, put a 3/3 boar creature token on the battlefield. So we've got the equivalent of it in Ixalan in the form of that dinosaur. But this is a card that's legal in Pauper, that you can just say this rarity is irrelevant in paper, because when they print a card for a box set in a rarity, that rarity doesn't mean anything. If it wasn't in a set that had booster packs, it's whatever rarity they just decide to give it to. And the only time this was printed was in Plane Chase. Plane Chase and Plane Chase anthologies. So Plane Chase 2012 edition. So it's a card that might as well be a rare or mythic. They could have put it as a mythic, and it'd be the exact same supply would be out there. So this is a card I like.
It's legal in Pauper because of Vintage Masters.
Yes, exactly. So it gives you this like little loophole in paper to play it. If they're going by the Commander or the Pauper ban, MTGO Pauper, Brindleshoat is legal in the paper version, even though it's just an uncommon.
I don't know if Brindleshoat is seeing much. Is it seeing?
It has every now and again. Again, it's a great way to protect. Sometimes they use like Young Wolf, and sometimes they use this to protect against like the Diabolical Edict if you're running. And there is a new.
There are better ways now. There are a few better ways now.
Yeah, Young Wolf is really good.
No. Better than that. No. You have the Colony Gardens, which is the traditional one.
Yeah.
It's the land that taps for a green, enters the battlefield tapped, and when it comes into play, you get an 0/1 plant. That's what Boggles used to use, but now they have something even better. It's the Cartouche of Solidarity. There's your easy, it's an enchantment.
Yeah, okay.
One, it's an enchantment, and it protects from edict effects because it generates a creature.
So the deck it's being run in is this black green aristocrats deck. And so it's the Mortician Beetle got bumped down from rare to common. And so it's an all-in Mortician Beetle deck. With cards like, there's another card like Unearth. There's a lot of goodies here. This Scar Scale Ritual now I've seen in multiple Pauper decks. This looks like a good online spec. It's already spiking. Here you go.
I would caution I would caution against investing in decks that are not tier 1 in Pauper, because there often isn't as much room for growth.
You underestimate the rogue, though. I'm telling you, the rogue effect has a bigger effect than that. I think that's one of the major problems with investors that also happen to be spikes, is they forget that a vast majority of people buying cards refuse to play tier 1 decks. So whether or not the deck is good, people still buy the card. And you can see that that is rung true and true and true for a long time now. With I'm sure we can find a lot of these discrepancies, a lot of these tier 2 decks that have very expensive cards in Pauper. And this one actually, though, this one's an inside out combo as well. So, oh no, it's not. What is? Yes, this is no. What is this deck? Oh, it's a Muldrifter Seagate Oracle deck. Ah, it's not on this one. What are they doing to us? Oh, yes, it is. Yeah, Scar Scale Ritual. So it's a huge value-based card. So its initial cost, you put a -1 and counter on a creature, draw 2 cards. So you just throw it on a creature that wants to die, and then you're drawing 2 cards, and then maybe getting an effect out of something else. So I don't know. I don't know if you would call this unproven at the moment. It goes in 2 archetypes for Scar Scale. Has a reasonably low supply with, what is that, Shadowmoor? So is that a second or a third set? I didn't even play during that time period. One of these. What was the release of each one of them?
Well, yeah, Shadowmoor. I'm not thrilled about investing in Scar Scale Ritual, but yeah, I mean, it's very easy to reprint, and it's not really, it doesn't have an extremely high demand for Pauper.
It's a multicolored card though.
You can do that in a commander set very easily, I think. But,
yeah, but what black blue commander deck wants -1/1 counters? Like they've kind of shown that off to like a green black archetype. I think this is a lot tougher to reprint than you're going to give it credit here.
Okay, well, I mean, I very well could be wrong. It could be a good spec. It could be a good spec. I just, yeah.
I thought they banned Snap. Snap still legal?
I'm definitely, if I were investing in paper, I would definitely, I would be looking in 2 places. I would be looking at the old cards, the Kyrian Rangers and the Holy Lights, and I would be looking at cards like Palace Sentinels that are printed exclusively in the Conspiracy product because they're very limited in supply.
For paper, Conspiracy is quite. It's not very limited. There's a lot of supply for Conspiracy.
What, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Conspiracy was a full print run set.
I don't know. I look at Palace Sentinels and it's 15 cents in paper, and it's $10 on Magic Online purely from.
It's only in treasure chests. It's
only in treasure chests. But it is a necessary card in in the premier mid-range deck of Pauper.
Yeah, but Conspiracy 2 is very open. I'm just telling you that from a local game store perspective, paper store. Conspiracy has a ton of supply out there. It crashed the prices of a multitude of cards. We're talking a lot higher than Eternal Masters or Modern Masters type sets. Conspiracy was you could buy it to your heart's content for an entire year from Wizards.
Okay, well then ignore what I just said.
And there was a big price spike because what was it, like Exploration was in Conspiracy or Burgeoning, or there's a lot of good cards in Conspiracy 2, In fact, if you even look at the Conspiracy 2 cards, it almost looks like it's a better set than Iconic in a lot of ways. And it was, it wasn't a limited print run whatsoever. I mean, we went through boxes and boxes and boxes. I probably have if you guys can see back in my shelves back here, I probably have like 3 full boxes of Conspiracy Commons. So it's one of those things where discrepancy might not be the best way. I mean, of course it's better than a standard set, but it's fairly recent too in the scope of things.
One of the viewers wanted us to discuss chittering rats.
Yeah. Chittering rats has always. I've made so much money off chittering rats on MTGO. I've bought into this on the low so many times and sold it off.
Well,
it's low now again. Wow, it hasn't spiked up for quite a while.
In paper, I mean, yeah, 44 cents.
I wonder if they still have this on the treasure, on the slot, of why it's crashed so bad.
Yeah, well, no, it's a player reward promo.
Oh,
so,
this is what I hate about MTGO. It's the biggest problem is they don't know when to turn the supply off with stuff. And they look at Expiring Statuary right now, or Vantage, which is the land. The red white land, it was down to under a ticket the other day, just because they've had it as like the 20 of for so long.
It's down to a ticket. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, because they needed it for the red blue, and they needed it for the green blue land because of how bad Teamer Energy was just needing the duel. But they refused just to do those specifics. They've kept the cycle on there, and it's just been flooded. The market has been so horribly flooded with those lands.
That's disappointing. Yeah, I still haven't sold mine.
Neither did I. I bought into like 50 of them. It sucks.
I actually think that Chaz Anders or Andres, I don't know which, the ER or RE, but his article this week for Star City Games was quite good. And he kind of touched on this issue, and I've definitely felt it, and I think others feel it too. And it's that, I think players don't often want to be the finance guy who, writes down all the cards that he owns and sits there and manages, who manages a portfolio and who keeps really up to date with all the stuff that Wizards is printing and doing. And if you're like that, you're going to get hosed by all of these reprints and Magic Online Treasure Chest, and the player reward promo really got me. I didn't pay much attention to it, and yeah, I mean, I went this week and I looked at my chittering rats, and yeah, it was worth nothing, and I was like, why is it worth nothing? And then I saw that it was in the player reward promos, and I was like, oh Lord, that's why, and that was the case with several other cards. And
yeah, do they have a list for that stupid thing, the player rewards pack that's in there?
They do. They do, but it's
like alternate art
it's
stuff
on the website.
too.
But the problem is that people. I think a lot of people just don't want to keep up with the financial side of Magic as much, and they rely on the good faith of Wizards to not just totally crash the value of everything, and it just. I think it's psychologically draining for a lot of people who want to come back, and then it discourages people to come back and play after having ignored the game, or it discourages people newer to the game who recognize that they have to actually really keep up with all the financial aspects to the game if they want to play Magic. I think that's the real issue, is that now playing Magic is not just playing Magic. Playing Magic is playing Magic and keeping up with the financial aspects of Magic. And that I don't think is appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah, well, that's how I made a killing on World of Warcraft, though. Back in the day when I used to be a finance person on WoW, I was the only one reading patch notes. Or upcoming patch notes. So I'd know, because the WoW economy was crazy. The markets would get flooded with materials you'd need. And then a new, especially when I played, I think it was the 3rd expansion where it really got so predictable. They had both the arena seasons plus the raid seasons is what they'd call it. So they'd release all this, the second tier stuff after the a new better tier came out, it was easy for everyone just to pick up the second tier stuff. And so it would cause, all of them required these sockets that you could put gems in and stuff like that. And it would cause this massive shift in supply and demand to where everyone needed the supply that no one needs then again for the next 3 months. And it was just over and over and over, rinse and repeat, just because I'd read up on the patch and I was like, wow, this new this new thing's going to require like 60 adamantium bars. Economy can't absorb that. I mean, and the supply can't absorb that. People are going to want that more than there is out there, and I just buy it all up and rinse and repeat. So the opportunity is definitely there for people that want to read patch notes. My problem with Wizards is they're so bloody hard to find. So, like, a lot of times they don't even link it correctly, and it is definitely something you have to be on top of.
Yeah. Well, I think, well, like, look at Zach's comment. That's a lot of, Rudy from Alpha Investments was saying something similar, that, or somewhat, I think it was Rudy, but it might have been Chaz, someone that, if modern prices are going to be so unstable and so subject to to tons and tons of reprints and just have a general downward trajectory, then people aren't going to want to to buy those cards. People are going to do what Zach says to do, and that's to invest in reserve list cards, because those aren't subject to the same rules that all the other cards are. And I think that Wizards and both the paper division and the online division, I think that they need to keep that psychological fact in mind. There's definitely a psychological element to it that I think that they're missing.
Yeah. Well, they also need to know that cards have to have value. There has to be those when a card goes up, like a Jace Architect or Jace Vryn's Project goes up to from $15 to $100. That gives people, there's an excitement in that. And I think that that's a huge healthy part of Magic the Gathering. I will argue blue in the face with these purists, these Magic players that think that the secondary market's this big bad evil villain that's keeping people back from enjoying Magic. I think if Magic cards didn't hold value, which we're going to see with Arena, that not being able to have a secondary economy or a way to trade cards is going to take a lot of the excitement away from the game. And it's coming for me. One of the reasons why I played Magic for as long as I have is, it's that sort of thing is I find exhilarating, and even today when I figured out my collection's worth like, a couple grand in just stuff that I've accumulated over time, whereas my other games I've played are worthless after years of playing them, and so that's what's made Magic very, very healthy, is the ability to have value in cards. Otherwise, why buy a $4 booster pack? So Wizards definitely needs to step back in. I think they should manage it better, but I don't want it to be predictable either. So it does need to have some sort of unpredictability. I'm
sure their ears are to the ground, so to speak. I'm sure that they are hearing that that they're printing too many master sets. That seems to be everyone's opinion. And
check out the WPN page.
and I do think that they'll scale it back. There's a balance that needs to be struck. And I think that balance is when is when people have an intuition that their investments are in some sense safe and won't have evaporated if they leave the game or don't consciously manage their Magic collections. However many reprint sets per year that they do, or how or the volume of production for those sets, right? The full release, or unlimited release or limited release, they just need to get it right to where people have confidence in it's not just confidence in their investment, but just confidence in that when they buy a $10 booster pack or go draft these master sets, that that those cards' value will not evaporate really quickly, and we aren't there right now, and I think that we'll get there. I think that Wizards is listening to the community and to you know to their wallet, right? I don't think that master sets are selling as well as they used to, and that's because they're less special. It's because like people are kind of exhausted by the number of reprints and by the frequency of reprint sets. I think.
Well, Iconic was the perfect storm. They misvalued because if you actually look at it, Modern Masters 3 and Iconic had the exact same value pre-print as they each one did. You add them all up, they were about the exact same. But the problem with Modern Masters or Iconic was it didn't have any real sustainable. It was all low demand cards that were just expensive because they are also low supply. Whereas Modern Masters was high supply cards like Liliana, like Tarmogoyf, like all the fetch lands, but they are also high demand. So it was a set that was able to generate the buzz, because Iconic actually, people forget, Iconic had a ton of buzz. If people want to go back and say it didn't, they're not being honest, because people, when the spoilers card coming out and you see like a $20 Shieldred or the consecration Sphinxes and things like that, people got excited. Oh, I want those for my decks. But that's a card that can't hold value if they reprint it like they did. Iconic should have definitely been a WPIN exclusive and one fourth of the amount of supply that they released. But yeah, they definitely need to scale that back. So anyway, we're getting off topic with there. Do you have any specific cards that I know we talked about this early about that you think that have a good chance in if we do see a lot more, say, going from 700 to 1,000 players in the Pauper League? Because I think that if people are going to be going to a GP, they're going to want to get practice. And where are they going to get practice? MTGO. So I think that this might have an impact on the market, but it might be.
So there's, and I believe that Pauper had closer to 500 to 600 players, in August and September, and now it's 770, which is high. So like the more users that play it, then prices are going to go up. And cards like Days have rebounded quite nicely from like $8 to $11. Hydroblast and Pyroblast are still holding their value and aren't on a downward trajectory anymore. So there is, I don't know about like whether, I think paper is a better place to think about buying a ton of speculation just based upon like the popularity of cards, because if the ChannelFireball and if the ChannelFireball GP and the professor, and if the professor is successful in drumming up support for it, for the Pauper format, then a lot of people might start wanting to buy these cards in paper. Whereas online, I think in general the cards are just going to generally reflect their ratios and whatnot as they are now. They'll just be higher on average, by 20% or 30% or whatever. Whereas in paper, you have the real potential to have legitimate spikes, because cards that had very little demand or no demand all of a sudden have significant demand.
Yeah, I think the best thing for the Pauper for MTGO is just to look at the recent events. It looks like most of the spikes that I've looked have always been these newer decks that start to see more.
Yeah,
like the Inside Out combo.
I haven't done my research for it, but I do think I'll write an article about it over Christmas.
Do you see Snow Covered Island? That one looks like it's spiking like crazy.
Oh yeah.
So Scred.
That's in Pauper. Your blue red deck, which
Scred,
it's called Scred. Well, it's not called Scred anymore. It's just called blue red. Blue red Delver. It's really just a blue red mid range deck. And yeah, they play Scred, so all of their basics are snow covered mountains and snow covered islands. In Pauper, all of the artifact lands are legal. So Affinity is running your Great Furnaces and the Ancient Dens. Well, they aren't running Ancient Den. Excuse me. They're running the blue ones, the red ones. I forget their names, but What other?
Look at Ash
We
Barons.
talked about. We
That
talked.
card's can go insane. That's a mythic.
We
That's not a
talked about.
common.
We talked about a few. We talked about a few good ones. I think. We talked about Kyrian Ranger. You showed Battle Screech, which is good. Gorilla Shaman, I think, is
Yeah,
is good
Gorilla Shaman
as
got way
PO 1980
expensive.
is saying. Zach Shafee recommended Needle Drop, which is it's a staple in burn.
Lorwyn. Yeah.
You know,
I
um,
thought okay, it does have only one printing. Needle Drop. Yeah, it's trending upwards too. So it seems like the Pauper has more demand though. All these paper cards that we've been talking about have had
yeah,
this
look at that.
trajectory, and this is
Yeah, that
without any
that's
major
what
pressure.
that's what we've been. I mean,
Huh?
that's kind of what you and I saw before stream is that a lot of these cards have already doubled in price over the past year. So there does seem to be some organic demand. Maybe Channel Fireball looked at that data and
Yeah.
saw that that there is some demand for these cards. So maybe a GP could be successful.
Wow,
For
Gorilla Shaman's pennies in paper. And
it's
that's Alliance. Alliance, that is super low supply.
that's one that'll never be printed again. At least at common. I mean, it's instant speed and it's just way overpowered too. Um, Pauper's weird like that. It has some just insanely overpowered cards. Gorilla Shaman being one, Kyrian Ranger being another, Ponder pre-order. Oh, Ponder being the big one, but Ponder.
I like Preordain better than Ponder because it's got a little less supply, and they seem to be played very similarly in
Oh
Pauper.
well, yeah. I mean, they're always four ofs. They're
Yeah, Preordain's got one less set that it's in. So Ninja, we have a chatter saying we should buy. Ninja's weird though, isn't that one that was on the? No, it wasn't on the player rewards. This is a card that I've bought and sold a ton in paper as well because you can, or in on MTGO as well. Because look at all these spikes up and down. I've rinsed and repeat Ninja so many times.
hard. That one's hard to just reprint because ninjutsu is a kind of an advanced mechanic. So and I don't know. So
Well,
I'd have to go back and read what Morrow said about ninjutsu and how high it is on the storm scale and how much the
it's
players like it and whatnot.
is it in the treasure? It must be in the treasure. So before you invest anything in MTGO though, you have to go look at the treasure list, people. That's the big one. And I think that to me it looks like this has to be on. So for what other reasons would Ninja be going down? So before people go and buy it up, definitely go check to see if Ninja's on there. Because they're right, it's gone down $1 within a week, 2 weeks.
Well, nothing has changed in the past week or two.
Yeah,
but
it was $3.40 and then a massive bump here. So when was the last one? Wasn't it in the? There's a treasure change. Not too long ago though, right? I thought there was a treasure chest change.
I think that I don't. I mean, a lot of. I mean, Ninja goes up and down a lot. Some of these cards do too, as PO 1980 is saying. I wouldn't read too much into it. I don't think that Ninja is it's not in the player reward list. It's well now that I don't know PO 1980 because Pauper like the Pauper or at least I don't like maybe not everyone is like me, but I definitely don't like investing in some of these Pauper cards because the bots don't give as good like the bots buy significantly lower than they
Oh, the
sell
spread,
for.
the spread,
Yeah,
yeah.
the spread, excuse me, the spread's the right language. The spread is really bad. Um so it can often be
Ooh,
like
yeah.
speculating on pauper cards is not as wonderful to do as for standard or even some modern cards. So I don't know if I would chalk it up to speculators, but I mean, Ninja of the Deep Hours does have a sort of look to the graph that suggests, speculation. Like it's very swingy, with stark rises and falls. So, maybe that is a favorite. There are always speculation favorites that show these frequent rises and falls. So,
Huh. Well, I guess in closing, if anyone has some other questions before we close the stream down, I think that definitely need to do some research for the paper aspect of it. But there's definitely some goodies here. I think that people should definitely snap up, if you're going to be getting into Pauper, the Scred and Snow Covered Island. What you want to do is you want to go through all these decks, if you were to, and a little bit of forewarning, because you can see the spread too on paper prices between buy lists and how much they're sold are pretty awful. This is quite normal for low end cards, for under the $2 mark. Plus, if you end up selling these on another outlet like TCC Player, you'll get killed by the fees. So eBay, TCC Player. So if you're going to be investing in Pauper for the hype, I highly suggest a trading service like CardSphere, or you need to find a play group that is going to be getting into Pauper and be that guy that brings the cards to your local game store to trade. Now, a little bit of backstory about me. I was the guy that used to bring the cards like the, I was saying, Horthing Outburst. That was such a Kevin card to bring to a trade group, because I was the only one that would care to put that in a binder, and I'd inevitably find a person that needed them. And then, you keep trading up and trading up and trading up until you get the valuable cards that have a low spread that you can actually sell on the eBay, on the TCG Player after a big spike, like a Pro Tour. I mean, timing in Magic the Gathering is everything for finance. So with Pauper, you're going to have to utilize the card sphere, the in-person trades, if you're going to get any sort of return on investment. But I've been just while we're talking, I've looked at a few. I like Scred right now because it's got pressure. I'll try to pull these up as I talk about them. So Scred looks interesting to me. It's also a pet card of mine. Had a spike back in. It won a GP when this spike happened. I remember it. So had a spike right before Aether Revolt, and has been going down because Scred's fallen out of favor in the modern metagame. Scred is never good versus combo, unless you can shut the combo down with Blood Moon. That's just as a Scred player, I can say that with it's really good with like Jund and Abzan are big. So anyway, but for the decks that play it in the Pauper, they do tend to look like they're using 4 of in the lists of Scred. And they're also using 9 snow-covered islands. So you got to think that this is like double decks. So every deck of Is It Delver is getting double the amount of snow-covered islands per Scred. And that seems like a pretty low price point with the snow-covered island. $1.57 and $1.57 for the and trust me, the Cold Snap the Cold Snap, what do they call that? The Cold Snap theme deck will sell out a lot quicker. That's how it was when I invested in the snow-covered mountains for Scred. The Cold Snap ones sold out because people just like the borders, the new borders better than the old borders, and the buyout happened with those first. So it's gonna. I don't think this mirrored $1.57 is gonna hold true for either one of them. I think that this Cold Snap one's gonna be slightly more expensive. And then, of course, the Ponder Preordains are safe investments. They've all been trending down. Let's see, where have they been in paper? They've been trending up for quite some time. Wow. But these are very easy to reprint in box sets like dual decks. They'll never be in a standard set because they're both, banned in modern, so they're not going to bring them back. But I do think they're a good place to at least sink or hold the money. Cards like Exclude, even though it's had a commander printing, you can see kind of the price discrepancy from online to paper, and this is spiked up quite heavily. So I think that a lot of these price spikes in paper will be very similar to price spikes that have happened in Pauper in the past. So Exclude seems to be typically a pretty common card used in many different archetypes for the Pauper format. And we talked about Gorilla Shaman being very good. The Brindle Shoat. I like Scar Scale. I don't think Kyle does. Tangle was a very interesting one because it already seemed to be expensive in paper at the $3 mark. And as an uncommon from Invasions, that's, it has a lot more chance of going up.
Some of the ones that you've been mentioning here, the Tangle and the Exclude, are very common in the control deck. It's like a Teamer Tron deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to play. It's an Urza's deck, right? Yeah.
Yeah, although now with with Modern Masters 2017, the deck is now more Sultai. But regardless, cards like Tangle and Moment's Peace are still used in that archetype. Like green is too essential because of Pulse of Marasa. So like those decks will always have blue and green, and then it's just a matter of how they choose to finish. Sometimes they like, it always used to be Rolling Thunder, so the deck would always be Teamer, and then it like moved to Sultai. But cards like Exclude will always be, part of the control deck. Tangle's a little less of a sure thing, but
it seems like a metagame choice in the sideboard. A lot of decks
it's more
can
of
just
a
chuck it
metagame
in.
choice, and a Moment's Peace is similarly more of a metagame choice. But I mean, it stood the test of time. Both Tangle and Moment's Peace have stood the test of time. So those both seem like good cards to look at investing in anticipation of of more people in paper actually playing Pauper.
Well, and I definitely check out the Double Dippers too. So Fire Blast is another one I like. Fire Blast is a legacy card that is played very frequently in Legacy Burn, and it's a staple in the Pauper Burn, as it's a pretty busted card to have a free cost card. Mole Drifter, I think, has enough commander pressure that if Pauper outstretches the supply. Same with like the Priest of Titania, the Birchlore Ranger, the Kyrian Ranger that we talked about earlier. I don't think I showed Birchlore. This is the price point I really like with this card. It's only had one printing, Onslaught, 25-cent card. Wow, it's spiking online like crazy.
Zach raised an interesting point about foils.
Absolutely, if you can get ahead of them, but most of these have already spiked. I think the foil Pauper players already have picked theirs up, the people that are really passionate about the format. So it comes to the point where foils can get to a certain price before people just don't care about. It's cute at a certain price point, and it just becomes tedious at a higher price point. And so I've never really liked foils for this reason. They're just a huge liability for one. They get damaged, so I hate them personally. They get so damaged and warped, and they're very, very tough to find a buyer. That's the biggest problem I have with foils. But yeah, if you can find foils that are still, that don't have the spread right now of if they don't even have like a foil multiplier of like 3 or 4, if they have a very low foil multiplier, yes, absolutely pull the trigger if you're a foil investor. I'm just personally not a foil investor because to me they're too much of a liability. Also, have you ever noticed too, have you ever tried to sell to foil people? Talk about the stingiest. I'm going to go on a rant here too, because TCG Player is the most awful buy list to work with. TCG Player, I literally bought cards from TCG Player and then sent them back their own cards, and they rejected them at the exact same so like Lightly Played versus Near Mint versus. So I bought a bunch of cards from them for Near Mint, and then they spiked up in value, and then the buy list is one of those things I just need to get out of them. And so I buy listed them back to the TCG Player buy list, and then they sent them back and rejected the quality of them to me. I was so like, just talk about the double standard with people that nitpick on like you don't have to deal with this if you're an MTGO specker because there's no like card quality. But I've hated foils.
Up here in Toronto, I don't know why more people in America don't do this, but I mean, up here in Toronto, we have this Facebook group that's really good. and people just like advertise what they're selling or what they want to buy, and people buy and sell, and they meet up. Like, I live very close to one of the big uh, local gaming stores, so I just say, oh, let's meet up in front of 401 and exchange the cards there. And I like everyone's been great. Like
Hmm.
people are like good people, and they like they buy and sell very quickly, and they're not too like they're, I don't know, they're just nice. And so um I've had a lot of success with just trading in Toronto up
I'm
here.
jealous. I live in the middle of
Uh,
nowhere, so I've no choice but to deal with the online. And man, I've
yeah,
it's just as a personal preference, I don't touch foils because I've had more of a headache with foils than I've had a success with. Because if someone rejects your card saying it's not, oh, this is so slight, they're so picky on foils too. It's got to be pristine for a lot of people to consider them near mint. Whereas with regulars, you can get away with, near mint actually had, or slightly played near mint actually has a pretty big what we call acceptable before they start getting into the played type category. So but foils, oh, foil collectors are just the most horrendous people to deal with as when it comes with buy or to selling. Oh, I just don't touch them for that reason. But absolutely, if you can find discrepancies, that just when I've been like browsing through these, it looks like they've all been already eaten up pretty much. Like all these at least have like 5, 10, 20 multipliers. Pretty obscene to be investing in a bunch of these right now for an unproven format. That people would say that it looks proven, but I don't know if I would uh, really pull the trigger on foils. But again, everyone has their niche. But anywho, Ash Barons. This one is insanely interesting because this might as well be a mythic. Because again,
I'm
it's one of
still
those cards
I'm
that's not
still a
a
bit I'm still a bit miffed why Pauper hasn't had much success in the paper world heretofore. Like why hasn't Pauper been as popular
yeah.
as it has online?
Well, because it just hasn't
Um,
been supported. It needs some way to support it beyond Wizards needs to support it. The whole thing is MTGO does support it. They actually do leagues and Pauper challenges. But I haven't. That's my. Oh, you're gonna get me started in an entire another rant here about Wizards of the Coast, where they just need to hire a community manager. They should be doing a lot more things at the local scenes. They have these outlets. They have these clubs everywhere around the world where they could literally dictate. They could say, okay, this week's going to be a Pauper. Those standard showdown packs could then be Pauper showdown packs to get people to come in and play a format. The problem with Pauper is Wizards just doesn't really have much invested because, or for paper, because those have already gone through the print run. And they're not going to make any money by releasing Pauper cards in a standard set because it's not going to get anyone to buy packs for Pauper. So it's just, but on MTGO, of course, they control the supply, and it's that comes directly to them, so they do make money off of people playing on the MTGO platform, because then they can, yeah. So I don't know, but in theory, though, they actually do control the paper. So I've heard that argument with Modern over and over again, that the reason why that Wizards doesn't support Modern is it's the secondary market that benefits, not them. Blah blah blah. But I'm with you. They definitely should be promoting more of these alternate formats, just to get people invested in their game.
well, yeah, I mean, I just think it's good for Magic if people are invested in it and committed to it and enjoy playing it, and I think Pauper would have an audience. It would have an audience. I mean, what we've been looking at on the graphs, like I'm sure a lot of the viewers have noticed that a lot of the cards that we've been looking at have mysteriously increased in
Yeah.
price over the past year, right, or the past 2 years, and so there does seem to be some sort of organic demand for these cards, which can only mean that some people are playing Pauper in paper.
Yeah, it's
Um,
I can't believe this slipped. It's because none of these ever actually hit the radar too. With like when you check the data, these are little tiny increments per day. We're talking even less than a cent a lot of times per day. But I mean that if it's 0.5 of a cent, that means in a month it's gone up 15 cents. You give it 6 months since this has happened, and there you go. It's gone from a bulk card to a almost 60, 70, 80 cent whatever. Or if it's been going up that cent, 30 cents per month, now it's a $2 card all of a sudden, and it just slipped by. These are the kind of cards man, if you are someone that has a local game store that doesn't, like, I keep my inventory pretty, again, I come from a rags to riches type background with Magic, where I the only reason I was able to be successful was scraping that barrel. But a lot of local game stores just don't care about this, so you can go into their comment section and probably just scoop up a bunch of these. So I've got Gush pulled up, and Gush even just recently did have, oh no, just the anthology. Wow, that's an expensive card out of the dual deck anthology. $5.60 for a Gush. But yeah, this card's mysteriously gone. In the last year, well, the start of 2016, I guess, has gone from a 40-cent card to a $2 card. Gush is played like crazy in Pauper, and so is Daze.
Yeah,
but Daze is a known card for Legacy.
Oh yeah, Gush is used in blue-red Delver and blue Delver. It's a I think in my blue Delver deck, I think I have 2 of them, and I think in Is It Delver they run 1 of them, but maybe 2. They might run 2, and some Delver decks.
Is It Blitz probably runs a lot because it's a free spell.
And yes, in Is It Blitz, I think you run 3 usually.
Yeah, because I played in Is It Blitz deck. See, we actually had a Pauper league at our store. We for a time until those people moved on to other stuff. Usually it's the people that can't afford Modern, or the people who get into it. I remember, I'm trying to think of some decks that we had going around, and that was definitely one of them. Was Is It Blitz, or Is It Blitz, which is the Kiln Fiend. I guess we can pull it up with the
Kiln. Yeah, it's a really fun deck that I've played some of that myself.
Kiln Fiend, Nivix, Cyclops, and a lot of them use Elusive Tormentor or Elusive Spellfist. This one's using Agra Bolus, but I've seen Elusive Spellfist in this slot as well.
That's an alternate version. They structure the Elusive Spellfist version is less comborific. It's a little more consistent.
So it's going to run more cantrips rather than...
Yeah, I mean, I definitely prefer the all-in version. I think the all-in version's a lot stronger.
Yep, Gush is a 3 on this one. It gives a new home for like mutagenic growth. Gitaxian Probe is actually legal in this format. Wow, that's a... Yeah, and the power level I say the depth isn't there for different archetypes, because you can't really play a lot of combo, like Scapeshift type combo, for example. Type of power level.
This counts as combo.
Yeah, it counts as combo, but like what I'm saying with Modern, there's a lot. Magic was balanced on rarity, and so certain rarities did, like a spell could do bigger things if it was a rare. So you have a lot of these like small pieces in Pauper that work together. And so it's definitely, all the decks are going to feel very common. Like people can't establish a Gristlebrand type threat, for example. So it takes away kind of the depth there. But I've noticed that Pauper is definitely more powerful a lot of times in Modern. Like a lot of these decks, you could queue them up in Modern, and they'd be extreme. Like this deck right here, this isn't Blitz. This would be a competitor in Modern. I mean, the mana base is a little bit awkward. But I mean, it's got Lightning Bolt, Mutagenic Growth, Ponder, Preordain, Gush, Brainstorm. All of those cards are like, it's a pretty quick, fast format. But like you said, it can grind out as well when you get those tempo versus tempo or control versus control.
Oh, is it Blitz doesn't win on turn 3 or 4 usually. Like it usually takes a little more setup, but
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it kind of all happens in a turn, though. It's fast like that for sure. Well, someone in the comments wanted our perspective on Relic.
Relic Progenitus. It just got a
Mm-hmm.
reprint in Eternal Mass. It's been a card I've been picking up on Cardsphere for $1 for a long time now.
It's used in Modern too. I didn't
used
know
in
that.
Pauper? I thought it was an uncommon. Oh, it was a common. Oh yeah, it's a staple in Modern. Relic is a huge staple in Modern.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a staple in Pauper too.
Okay.
It's you know,
What graveyard
it's
deck is there in Pauper?
no, it's not a graveyard deck. Oh, well, you use it against Tron because Tron relies on Pulse of Marasa and Mnemonic Wall. So that's a really good way to shut those down.
Okay, so it's a metagame call for it. So
Well, but I mean yeah, yes, it's a metagame call, but it's the best thing to use.
it's only I don't know if Pauper. A lot of these lists I was looking at just 1-ofs. I don't know if 1-ofs is enough to spike it up.
It was good against something else. I'm trying to think of what the other deck was that. Let me look.
Like an Unearth deck.
The Unearth.
Just
Unearth was used in Mono Black, but I think
Yeah.
Mono Black died. So
It always. I think Mono Black's good when like the all aggro decks are popular because it does very terrible against the heavier blue control decks. Because I used to play Mono Black and Pop when I was playing Mono Black in like Pauper leagues and things like that. Mono Black was really good against Delver based blue decks and really good versus like Goblins used to be a huge part of the meta back in the day, and it was also decent versus Burn because it did have a little bit of ability to gain some life back. But it was so miserable to play it against like the heavier control based. It was just and back then there was a lot of the decks used the Storm. A lot of those have been banned. Temporal. So bounced everything back to your hand. Temporal, didn't that get banned? Temporal Fissure. But so again, I haven't played for a long time, so the whole meta has changed a lot. They've banned a lot of those. Didn't they ban the fairy that untapped 2 lands as well?
yeah,
Because that was
familiar,
a huge part.
It was the Drake, and then when Drake became legal, they had to ban that. Yeah. I quit when Drake. Yeah, I played one match against it, and I was like, I'm not doing this. So I stopped.
Yeah,
playing
I haven't
for
played
6 months.
forever either, but I know that Mono Black was good when aggro was good, and it looks like, but probably not against Stompy because Stompy is very resilient.
You can also use Relic against Stompy, Kevin. By the way,
the Young Wolf, yeah.
Well, Rancor is the real problem, but yeah, I mean, yeah, you is it for some decks it's the only way to deal with Rancor. So yeah, I mean, Relic is a card that a lot of people like to play in the sideboard as a 1 or 2 of, as a 1 of in general. Because some of the graveyard decks that used to exist, things like Black Blue Angler, for example, or Mystical Teachings, right? Like when Mystical Teachings was what was the premier control deck, Relic was incredible. But now that it's Mirasa Tron, it's it's just okay. It's okay to good rather than fantastic, So I think Relic isn't as wonderful as it used to be in Pauper, but it's still just a really solid. It's a really solid card. I don't know about. Would I recommend specking on it?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't. We definitely spec in Relic right now, but not for Pauper.
It's
something you want to pick up for Modern. It's at a way low price, and it was
$2. Well, I don't know. I mean, it was $2. It has been as high as $5 in the past, and right now it's $4.
361. I've been picking them up on Cardsphere for $1 forever. I've got a whole stack of them from. Yeah, people. Well, if you want it, I highly recommend Cardsphere. I say this all the time to people, but just lowball on Cardsphere, and you'll be surprised at how many people will send you cards. And so Relic was one of them that I hit hard. Cyclonic Rift was one that I hit hard. I hit Anger pretty hard, but then the damn thing got reprinted. But I did not see that one coming quite yet. I thought if it was going to be reprinted, it'd be in the one before it. But yeah, that hurt. because I got all excited when Anger was not. I guess it wasn't eligible for. Yeah, I didn't think it'd be reprinted until the next Masters set, and then when they had it on Iconic, I just got murdered on that spec. That was another one I hit hard on MTGO, and couldn't get out in time. Womp womp. But
I did get out in time.
Really? Because the minute they spoiled it, the bots already
No.
even...
I had invested in it a while ago. Like if you hit the online tab, you'll probably be able to see when I invest. Like, well, never mind. It's irrelevant. But
well,
yeah,
I pulled it back up because I was picking them up on is one of these low spikes. I can't even remember where it was. Like back Kaladesh time, it was super low, and I remember it was when I finally sold my last Stony Silence. I'm like, okay, I need another Stony Silence if I'm going to play in 2017, 2018. I need a big one. So, okay, what's the most undervalued card that sees the most play in Modern? And I scoured the data, and it was Anger. I'm like, oh, that's fine. Even though it's a first set, that's fine. I think it's going to be. And then it started to go up, and I was getting excited when it hit the $152, and then it did have those ups and downs, and then it got spoiled for Iconic, and then like I tried that day to get out, and the bots were only paying like 65 cents for it. I'm like, and yeah, they started even not buying it. I sold a few copies, and then they wouldn't even accept buying anymore.
Yeah,
that's the online game you have to play with it. But Pauper, man, there are a lot of cards that are spec worthy. This Prismatic Strands, that card looks like it could pop from a Judgment.
Oh yeah, like it's a wonderful. I love Prismatic Strands. It's one of my favorite cards.
Well, there's a lot because when you go over here, the most played cards in Pauper, and a lot of these are very uninteresting just because they either have a heavy print run, or are just these are going to be the very known quantities right off the bat. Gleeful Sabotage, that one actually does look pretty good for a possible. This one did spike up too, man. We are wrong about this format. There's got to be a lot more players in this. If it went from 20 cents to $2 overnight.
Yeah, I mean now might be a good time to consider investing in it. So I mean,
fair warning though, Wizards sees it. They do reprint commons very, very often. You'll see them in the dual decks like crazy. They'll throw them in. But yeah, EDH Trek does not. There's not a lot being played in EDH Trek. So this is all Pauper. This is 100% Pauper demand that went from $2 20 cents to $2 and has maintained its price.
It's crazy. The best. It's Gleeful Sabotage is an incredible card. It's the best way for mono green Stompy, which is the best deck in Pauper for those of y'all who don't keep up with Pauper. So I mean, it just hoses so many it hoses Affinity, it hoses Boggles, and you get virtue points for hosing Boggles. It hoses. What else is it good against? Oh, it's just so good against it kills the Golem, the 2/4 Golem in Delver. It's just so useful. It's just so useful.
When's Galvanic Blast gonna spike on MTGO? This can't have that much supply. Scars of Mirrodin? That's crazy. No reprint, no promo. 4 cents for all its life. Maybe Scars had more of a. Maybe it was one of those that they oversaturated. That's gotta be. Because I think this is my problem with my a spec that never panned out on MTGO. What's the one where you have 3 artifacts that gains protection from all colors? The Champion. And I could always why isn't this going up? Why isn't it going up? It should be going up. It should be going up. And I think it's because Scars of Mirrodin was overprinted on MTGO. That's my guess. But paper, it looks pretty good too, because this is Affinity is the most played deck currently right now in Modern, and that always happens with when combo's big and people aren't packing the Affinity hate, when they're packing the Storm hate, when they're packing the Scapeshift hate, all that stuff. Affinity just slips under the radar and just beats everything. So Yeah, Galvanic Blast looks really good if Pauper picks up, because it looks like it's a staple in Pauper. Affinity and Colothal Boros pick it up. What are some other ones I had here? The
So someone's asking
Circular
about
Logic. That one was very interesting because the power level here is huge.
someone's asking about Reality Acid, and I
Oh,
would say
I pulled it up earlier just to look at it to see if that was still a deck. I used to play
it's not.
against it.
It's not a deck anymore.
Okay.
It's been hosed out just from the, like, Pauper's gotten a lot more streamlined, I would say, because of the increase in master sets. There's always some downshift of rarities that just enable some decks to just become a lot more streamlined. Stompy became incredible with Burning Tree Emissary. Elves got a lot better with Elvish Vanguard, which went from rare to common.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Conspiracy, with Palace Sentinels, and just, well, the whole Kadoltha Boros engine just kills any other mid-range strategy. Like you really can't be mid-range really anymore unless you're running the Kadoltha engine or the Blue-Red Delver. So Spellstutter Sprite is the big one. Like you're either running Spellstutter Sprite or you're running Prophetic Prism. And if you're not doing one of those two things, then you're not playing a traditional mid-range deck in Pauper. So
Yeah. Shadow Rift is another one that I've been watching quite closely. When the last time around in Pauper I looked at it, this is a Tempest card, and it has spiked in the past on this is another one. I don't understand why they don't run this one in Kiln Fiend. That one always baffled me. I guess there's the one that already gives them unblockable, but yeah, that's a pretty solid gain shadow and draw a card off of one. Is there a shadow card that just like hoses down that people actually play that they can block it at that point, or?
No. Shadow Rift is used in Kiln Fiend in the elusive Spellfist version, but the combo version relies too heavily on Temur Battle Rage to deal its damage. So just making something unblockable isn't good enough. You have to give it Well, it's really about giving it double strike. You have to deal 16 damage with it instead of 4 or 8. But anyway,
Yeah, this one though, the Tempest though, that's a low supply. Still loving that Ash Barrens. That one's crazy because that is not a common. That's just because Wizards said it's a common. Because I think it was printed every commander deck though. So that's why for everyone that wonders why commanders get certain rarities, and this isn't always true, but it's usually is true. Uncommon is in 2 of the decks, at least 2 of the decks. Common usually is in all of the decks. And then, of course, rare and mythics are usually in 1 of the decks. So a card like Ash Barrens, though, has only been printed in, I believe, the latest commander set. Wasn't that the latest one, or was the one before that? I can't remember
It was the one. It was the one before, because it's been out for a while.
Okay, so that one actually has pretty low supply. Then Commander 2616.
And because of Brainstorm, like this is Pauper's version of Brainstorm and Fetch Lands, right? You use Brainstorm and then you cycle away with Ash Barrens and you shuffle. So that's how Blue Red is so good in Pauper as a good mid range option. It like the Brainstorm plus Ash Barrens is what really helps that deck. So Ash Barrens is definitely a Pauper staple going forward for sure.
Yeah. So how about cards like Piracy's Charm? Does that still see play in the sideboard like crazy? When I used to play, this was a pretty heavily played card in Delver sideboards.
It's niche.
Okay.
Yeah. This is what I would call a metagame call. You use the term more liberally than I do.
Uh-huh.
This is one that like you might put it in if a certain deck is is giving you trouble or something. But
yeah, I remember when Delver was the big bad deck. It actually used to have a huge share of the meta when I used to play, and Piracy Charm was an extremely good card against them, as you could give a card unblockable, kill one of their Delvers before it could flip, or just have them discard a card. I mean, it's almost always useful. So
Standard Bearer is actually probably a good paper
we
spec.
looked at that one early on in the stream. I'll pull it back up again, but yeah, that one is.
Did we look at it? Yeah, I know we looked at it before the stream.
Maybe it's before the stream. Yeah,
I think it was before the stream.
Yeah, that one's Apocalypse, so that's from pretty low supply.
Low supply, and there's nothing better than that card against Stompy. So, yeah, I mean, when it's the best, like every single deck that has access to white should run Standard Bearer in their sideboard. So,
yeah, it looks like Bogles, Kadoltha, Boros. What's this white black?
That's another Monarch deck. It's a Palace Sentinels
control
deck. Yeah.
Guardian of Guild Pack. That's pretty low supply from Dissension. That one doesn't.
Oh yeah, and it hoses the tribe combo.
Too bad.
Wow, it might be underpriced.
People actually running Aven Riftwatcher. I remember I used to play. That used to be a pet card of mine. I'm like, why isn't people playing this? It's so good. Enters or leaves and gives you a 2/3 body for. It was like the opposite of what's that card that when it enters the battlefield deals 1 damage 3/3 and has the vanishing.
The Marauders.
Yeah, that used to be a pet card. Of course, Skyfisher got a reprint. Yeah, Chainer's Edict. I don't know if it has any more room. Like, this is a card that, in my opinion, gets addressed by Wizards. So they'll see a $4.50 card, and then they'll just try to throw it in the next box set. So this one might be already on their radar since it spiked a long time ago. So I caution people for investing in a card like that. Those are box sets they love to throw in stuff like that. Bog. How important is Bazooka Bog in Pauper?
Well, I mean, it's not as good as Relic, of course, but some like, because the graveyard isn't the most important thing in Pauper at the moment, Bazooka Bog is just something that some decks throw in just to have, but I wouldn't call it supremely important. It could become more important in the future. But Relic, I think, is just really, really good. So,
yeah, here's a card Choking Sands I used to run when I played in the Pauper League for the Urza's deck.
Yeah, if black I mean, that's not a bad spec, I guess, right? It's Mirage, which is, so it has low supply. And black right now is the worst color in Pauper, I think. So, oh yeah, by far, black is the worst color in Pauper. So if it becomes more popular due to new cards being added.
Geez, black is like non-existent.
Yeah, black is the white of where like white in standard is like black in Pauper.
So
it's not that extreme. It's not that extreme, but
Goblins is now non-existent, huh? That was a huge portion of the meta when I used to play.
Yeah, it died. Goblins died.
Aw, sad. Because it was good against Burn. It would win the Burn matchup because they were establishing like.
Burn had died too. There was one card or a fire. So someone in chat mentioned it. The Archer in our
Firebrand Archer.
Yeah, that helped Burn.
What they used to run in that place, it was like Keld Marauder and the Spark Elemental, or what do they run? Hellspark was never a common.
Yeah, well, no, some decks use the Hellspark. I mean, the
I don't think Hellspark was ever.
The deck
common.
had just died though. It was less than 1% of the meta for a while.
Huh. I always wanted to build an Crow and Crusader deck in Pauper. That's another thing that I don't know why people haven't thrown that in like a Kiln Team type version, because it pumps out a 1/1 every time it gets.
2 toughness is just too important, I think.
It?
Because
okay.
Electricity, as PO 1980 said, and then Holy Light as well is the other one. And Pauper lacks other good wraths. you have to use Pestilence or Evankar's Justice to deal more than 1 damage to wipe, for a board wipe. So, so there's a real incentive for go wide decks to try to get to 2 toughness as much as possible.
Look at that Martyr of Ashes. That's actually starting to see play now, huh?
That's probably why. Yeah, that'd be a good one. It's 15.
Oh
well,
yeah, that's super low supply. Super low. Cold Snap. That one's low. Crazy. Yeah, I think it's worth it definitely is worthwhile scouring over these. There's probably some we haven't even identified that.
I mean, yeah, Kevin and I are just sort of reminiscing now and like looking at it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, the sort of like take home message I would say is that there's a lot of a lot of cards have shown movement, and that movement can only rationally be ascribed to Pauper demand. So there is some demand in paper, and it might go up due to these recent announcements. So, it's definitely worthy of your consideration to, to speculate on these things in paper. In Magic Online, I don't think I just, well, I'm definitely not just jumping and going, oh, I have to, invest $50 or $100 into Pauper cards, so I'm going to just, design a portfolio for Pauper. I'm not to that. I don't feel that at the moment, but in paper, I don't know if you have $10 lying around, like, think about how to play with it on, in this in this speculation game. Some of the cards, like, I don't know, we were discussing one earlier that we thought it was Nettle Sentinels, right? That was like $250 now, and we thought, it could go up to 5 or 10, right? That's one to spend more money on, I suppose. But anyway, like Pauper, unlike a lot of other formats that aren't really exhibiting growth, Pauper might exhibit growth in the future. So it might not be the worst place to park some money, as Kevin was.
It's definitely the most interesting thing for me in Magic right now, because Modern is stale. Like, people keep saying this is a terrible sign for Modern. I'll show you the card that shows you all about that fetch, huh, Rudy? All about that fetch. It's a pretty terrible investment, in my opinion, in a card that sees so much play. I mean, this is beyond, like, Wooded Foothills and Bloodstained Mire are the most played cards in Modern because they're fetch lands. They're in a vast variety of decks, and since January of 2016, this card has just stagnated and gone down. This is pretty much true. There's only a few cards that, like, Collective Brutality has been going up, but everything else in the whole Modern format is, and when you look at something that's indicative of an unhealthy market, unhealthy just Magic the Gathering game in general, it's if Modern staples can't go up, because it's by far the most popular format. Beyond, I guess, besides Commander, but this card actually has a lot of demand in Commander too. So the whole thing is where we have to find potential investments are things that are going from no demand or low demand into a high demand realm, which I think if Learning Community College and ChannelFireball get on this, that's going to be this Pauper. And a lot of things with Pauper cards too is they become a lot more rare because commons just get destroyed, and that's just the nature of the beast. So, it's funny because commons and commons actually become more rare than sometimes rares do because of people just throw them around. They wallpaper their house with them. I remember that the store I used to go to is that they had they made a table out of cards, and they had like a bunch of Delver's Secrets because it was back during Innistrad. Like, let's chuck that all in there. It's not worth anything, and type stuff. Where people tend to keep rares and mythics especially don't really get dumped in the garbage can. Like, if you actually, one of the things I used to do is just go collect draft trash, and people would just chuck away a bunch of cards that are now $2-3 a piece, And so I think there's a lot of potential for a lot of these Pauper cards where there's no potential in Modern right now. I would tell everyone to stay the hell away from Modern in Paper. And then we were talking earlier before stream. It's very, very rough on the online, just the way that treasures are working. That it's really flooding the market with Modern cards at the moment. So
they're rolling that back, and we'll see. Like, we'll see how it goes.
So you think it was a mistake to sell out of all my Modern cards?
No. I mean, I'm just more. I don't know. I mean, I feel like your pessimism on a scale of 1 to 10, or where like 10 being optimistic and 1 being entirely pessimistic. I feel like you're more at a 2, and I'm more at like a 4 or 5. I'm much more neutral. I feel very neutral on this issue. I have some. It's not necessarily that I have faith in the benevolence of the people who run Magic Online, but I have faith that that in order for the economy to work, they need Modern prices to not be crashing as hard as they are now, and they know that that treasure chests are the cause, and so I mean they are throttling it back. As we've said, they are shifting more of the treasure chests contents to standard to ease the burden, or to ease the release of Modern and legacy and vintage cards. So we'll see what effect that has. I'm just keeping an eye on it, and I'm not gonna make a judgment about it one way or the other. In order to actually predict these things with a reliable certainty, we'd have to have more access to data than we do. So
yeah, it's I want to be more optimistic. I a lot of this does come from a general disdain that I have for the Wizards of the Coast right now. Almost a part of me actually wants the game to fail, just because I think they're deserving of a big failure right now with the way they've mismanaged so many things in the past year. But of course, like, my love for this game is gonna overshadow my other personal feelings at the moment. And yeah, I hope they do. I hope they do manage this correctly, so we can get back to the swing of things with the good old days of being able to predict trends and making some. It's definitely, NFT finance is definitely a good way to supplement your hobby experience. I haven't paid for Magic. That's at least what I can say. I've made money and haven't paid for Magic now since I've had an eye for finance, and it's fun. I find it exhilarating. I find it doesn't feel like work to me. So, anywho, any other closings? Since we've been going on for an hour and 45, and it is getting late here. But any other closing comments that anyone has on the stream? I don't know if Kyle wants to stick around for any longer. We'll stick around for as long as he wants to, but I don't know if we're getting to a dead point here. Any other ones we've missed?
Well, we just I don't know. I feel like well, at least I got across the points that I wanted to say already. So, like, I'm all good on my end.
Definitely what I want from the community is try to find, compile a list, see if a community we can figure out some of these. We got to get ahead, though, of the Tolarian Community College video for sure, if it is going to work. And this is it is risky, but I think the data is still there. We've discussed that it's still trending up, which is a great sign for it.
I don't think that it's do or die to get in ahead of of Tolarian Community College.
Trust me, they're gonna spike like crazy. Whatever video he does is gonna spike like it's gonna go crazy. So
but just,
he's a burn player.
I mean, I would just recommend to do your due diligence and research these things over the next week or so, and then and consider making these investments. And if you want to try out Pauper too, if you're a Paper player and you want to try out Pauper, then now's a good time to buy your deck, I think.
How brewable is this format? Every time I've tried it, I've been okay. It just tends to it's tough to build a deck that's actually good versus all of the decks. Is what I'm finding the problems. I've had some some this card was a huge. I loved this card when I was playing around in Pauper with Pepper Smoke with the Fairies deck.
Well, that was way before I played Pauper.
Oh, this was pretty recent. I had a Fairy Rogue
Really?
deck, and it was
Okay.
pretty potent. This Pepper Smoke did so much work though. But you're right, with the 2 toughness cards now, it might be a little bit. But if it's something the community wants me to brew in, I'll definitely try. But it's I don't know, it just doesn't have the depth for me. I like cards that do big things a lot of times. So I have a little bit of a Timmy in me. And so being stuck with commons, low casting cost cards, low, because that's what I found with Tron too. Weren't they using the finishers with that? It's that 5/5 that gains like 5 life when it comes into play.
That's gone now. No. Now it's either, you know, it's mnemonic wall, Pulsa Marasa loops,
Okay.
or it's well, I mean, you know, and you do that a lot for the end game, but the end game ends when you cast Dimrova Horror a trillion times, or you cast Rolling Thunder for 20 or something.
The horror is seen. Oh yeah, they dumbed that down, didn't they, in Modern Masters? Yeah, I haven't played since, and that was my favorite card to draft in Modern Masters because people undervalued it like crazy. But
yeah, my perspective on brewing is that it's not a, you know, it's not a brewer's paradise. Like there are, you know, like the quality of card in the format is so high that, you know, like it's really difficult to brew around, you know, how like how do I say this? It's also getting late. I'm getting tired. So it's a lot later where I am. See, he lives in Utah. He lives in Utah. He lives in Utah. I live in Ontario right now, so it's 3:20 here, whereas it's 1:20 there. I've even totally lost track. Oh, right, like there's just so, you know, when you have a deck built around Burning Tree Emissary, for example, right, like that deck is going to present you with a ton of pressure really early on, and you know, and that deck also has Kyrian Ranger and Nettle Sentinel, right? Like Burning Tree Emissary plus Kyrian Ranger plus Nettle Sentinel is just going to be an incredible deck, and so it's very difficult to brew an aggro deck that is better than that deck, you know. And then in mid-range is even more cut off, I think, because there's just no way to do better than Core Skyfisher plus Prophetic Prism plus Glint Hawk, right? Like this base of card is just what you have to do in mid-range. And anyway, I mean that's just like it's not a however the gameplay is fun. Like the gameplay is actually fun and engaging, and like I don't know, there's a lot of play to it, in that when you sit down across from your opponent, I do think that both of y'all feel like you have agency in the game, which is different than in a format like, well, I don't want to trash Modern too much. But
trash it all you want. It's
no, I'm not going to. But it's less like there's less determination. Like the two players themselves determine the game less in Modern, I think, than they do in Pauper. That's what I'll say.
So it's a lot more skill based or decision making based.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. That
looks to be the case for sure. Because I played Pauper definitely when it was a format that was awful, like with locks and really busted things. But it does seem like they've come to a nice little point where they've policed it pretty well. The metagame looks fairly diverse, and now people are shouting out cards in chat, and I'm just looking them up, and they definitely have decks. You know, maybe only one deck has registered, but that's still one deck that's been a 5-0 finish, which is more than you can say a lot with Modern. A lot of the times Modern has a lot of diverse decks, but they all do it the same way. But
yeah, but I mean, it's a good format that has appealing gameplay.
Yeah, so 10.26 of the top deck. That's not bad at all. That's pretty good.
You know, I mean, I definitely I don't know. I mean, I recommend trying it to your listeners. There are 50 of them right now. It's definitely worth.
We've been maintaining about 50. Not bad.
Yeah, it's definitely worth looking into, and considering playing in it. Either buying a deck to play, or getting in on investing in it if you believe that that Tolarian Community College and the GPs and just the natural growth that it's experienced apparently in the past year, that if that sustains, then I mean, you might be able to make to make a little bit of money speculating on it, possibly. Kevin identified. Well, we both have identified several cards over the evening that
yeah, I'll try to do.
Decent.
I'll definitely put together a list as I get more. Like maybe I'll try to coordinate with you too. If you are going to write an article, I'll try to coordinate with you about where we can go with this format. But I'm definitely going to compile a list for either a top 10 list. I'm not sure if it will be published here on. To be honest, I don't even know what my status with Quiet Speculation is at this moment, since I haven't ever written for them, and I've been waiting for Iconic Masters to finally hit the floor so I can talk about cards, and I don't know if it ever is going to hit the floor, so I've been putting it off, but definitely want to get started writing over there for those of you interested. But I definitely want to I'll do more of the you can see that I've been doing live streams for the past couple of days. That's just because around holiday season I've been kind of lazy with producing it, but I definitely want to get back to more of the edited videos, and I guess that'll be my promise. I'll get together a top 10 list of cards that I think are the most, have the best potential, less risk and best potential for growth with this new ChannelFireball announcement. And I'll get that done over the Christmas break. But yeah, so be looking forward to that. So if you have any specific cards you want to tweet at me that you think are good, you can always tweet at me at Rogue Deckbuilder, or send them to don't send them Facebook. I never check Facebook. Or you can Gmail me at roguedeckbuilder@gmail.com. So I'm definitely looking forward to the more of the community participation here, because I'm sure people know a lot more about this format than I do.
Well, several of the listeners definitely know, like several people in the chat are definitely players of the format, much more than either of us have been. I played pretty extensively, but it was a year ago, and I'm definitely out of the loop now. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, well, we're obviously getting too tired to communicate back and forth, so I think I'm going to call the stream. We're closing on 2 hours, which is where I want to keep streams at before they start to get way redundant. But thanks for everyone that joined in at this extremely late night. One of these days I'm actually going to schedule streams, but this has just been so impulsive. We literally were just talking on Facebook, then got on Skype. I'm like, hell, I'll stream this. So hope everyone enjoyed it. And yeah, I guess any last remarks, Kyle? Where can they find you? Where can they read more about you?
Well, I mean, I have Twitter. I don't even know what is my Twitter account. I mean, it's like Kangaroo. It's like King of Magic. I don't know.
I'll put it in the comments.
You can put a link to it.
I'll put a link to it.
And that's all for now. That's all for now.
Yep.
I write at Quiet Speculation as well.
And I'll try to have Kyle on. He has a wealth of knowledge. I know he's busy right now with his dissertation, right?
My dissertation proposal I'm writing over
dissertation
Christmas.
Proposal, but after that, maybe we can have him on
well,
more frequently.
Yeah. I mean, I won't be here with my mic and Skype. I'll be in Houston for Christmas and New Year's. So
yeah.
But yeah, when I come back, I'm happy to.
Yeah, definitely.
Happy to come back. So.
And if there's anyone other finance people that you guys like to have on these sort of these little live streams, let me know, and I'll try to see if I can get them. Anyway, this has been Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.
Yep, you have a good night.